Welcome to the Phi-Lacrosse-ophy podcast, where host and lacrosse expert Jamie Monroe will do what he does best, talk about lacrosse. Each episode will provide listeners with education, insights, stories, and lessons about the lacrosse world. We will discuss current events, coaching, philosophies, and college lacrosse recruiting. Now let's get started with your host, Jamie Monroe.
All right, I'm really excited to introduce Colleen Magarity to the Phi-Lacrosse-ophy podcast. Colleen runs Triple H Lacrosse out of Philly. She coached college lacrosse for 3 years at the University of Colorado when they were starting the program. That's where I met her, out in Colorado. She played at Northwestern, won 3 national championships, was an All-American, and played pro lacrosse in WPLL. Colleen, really fired up to have you on the show and to talk a little college lacrosse recruiting with you.
Yes, I'm excited to be here as we chat a lot. Good to get it on a podcast for everyone to hear.
Exactly.
The Phi-Lacrosse-ophy podcast is made possible in part by the JM3 video assessment tool. There's no question that video is critical to player development. One way or another, your son or daughter must utilize video to learn their game and the game. To learn more, see video testimonials, or register, go to www.jm3sports.com/video right now.
All right, let's talk about, we're right in the middle of recruiting season. You've got, club kids of all different ages. But let's just kick it off with this statement. Recruiting is a crapshoot.
Yes, it is.
Give me your opinions on why that is.
Especially right now, I think the fall is 100% a crapshoot because we touched upon this a little bit. The games are shorter. You're playing in not great weather conditions. You're playing on the East Coast typically, besides that last third tournament in Florida, which you get a little bit better conditions. So you're trying to have your girls make great plays in 18-minute halves running clock. And as we talk, you could not be winning the draw. So your attack might get 1 or 2 opportunities. You could be on defense the whole time. You could be on offense the whole time. You could have a goalie that gets 1 shot at them or no shot. So that's why it's a crapshoot a lot of times, just hoping that the ball rolls your way. That's why I tell my girls all the time, let's hope we have a great game. I don't really care if you win or lose. Let's just have a even leveled game where you get equal opportunities on attack and defense.
Yeah, it's a total crapshoot because you just never know. There's certain things you can't control, like the weather. You can't control it. If you're a goalie and your draw girl wins every time, you're probably not going to see very many shots. And then, oh, bummer, the coach is left at halftime.
Yep, exactly. And so, also refs, when they get a card, one of my middies got a card yesterday, which was in a great defensive play that's perfectly fine in college. Now she's out for 2 minutes, and maybe that coach that was coming to watch her was only there for a half.
Oh, yeah.
So
25% of the time, I would say there's refs that literally just change the whole complexion. If I was a college coach, I'd be like, ref, will you please just stop doing that? You're ruining the game for us. We actually wanted to watch this game.
Especially running clock. And for the purpose of this high school, I get it. There's a state championship on the line. You can call a timeout. You could coach. You can adjust things. It's really hard in recruiting showcases to, one, adjust on the fly, do things where every ref's completely different. So you might have 3 different sets of refs throughout your whole entire weekend that call the game completely differently. So just adjusting. And I just kind of smile and laugh. There's no point to even yell at the ref because what's the point? That's
really all you can do.
Yeah.
And obviously you can't actually make people like you in general. That just never works. But so just to sort of establish the fact that there's things that are completely out of your control. And that, you just have to go out there and get a little bit lucky on what happens in the game, that you get enough touches. How many dodges is your average offensive player going to get in a game?
It's under 10.
10 would be a lot.
10 would be a lot. That's what I'm saying. I'm thinking of a couple of girls yesterday in my games. I think I saw one of my players maybe do 8 dodges total in 2 games. So 4 and 4.
That's probably about right. When you're talking about 18-minute halves, you're in there for let's just say that, you don't play the whole game. So maybe you're in there for 10 minutes.
Teams have full rosters. So you're going 4 attack in, 4 out. You're getting 8 minutes.
9 minutes. They're getting 9 minutes a half, of which maybe half the time it's on the other end. So they're at 4.5 minutes a half. Maybe you get a dodge or two.
Yeah.
So it's tough. Now I can tell you this: if it's important, you do have to figure out a way to have some assertiveness, though, because
For sure.
because if you are not assertive at all, and then you never dodge, it's really hard for coaches to know how good you are. Talk about that for a second, as far as the way coaches are evaluating you as a playmaker.
Right. I mean, I think I talk a lot to my girls about body language and just being ready, because half the time, if you're just watching, you're an attacker, you're watching your other teammate just dodge and you're not ready, you miss that, like the reflection or the ball goes on the ground. You have to be ready to make the play at any moment. And also off ball is huge. Like, cause coaches aren't dumb. They know that like, it might be just luck of where the ball's moving. So you have to make them be like, all right, this kid's moving off ball. They're doing what they can control, because you're not gonna be able to control getting the ball. But being able to like time up a cut, be in the open spot when it's transitioning down there is huge. So sometimes I think girls miss their opportunity not knowing, just because they didn't get themselves in the right spot to get the ball.
Yeah, and off ball is it's probably 90% of the game. You don't have the ball, and being great there is incredibly important, and it'll make you so much more productive. It's nice to have a club team that values that and teaches that, which is a perfect segue into the next topic that I had for you, which was, how do you choose a club?
Right. It's a really difficult, like, I guess, dilemma for kids to be in. I think you gotta, same with when you're choosing like a college or where you're going, go with a gut feeling of those coaching staff. Are you going to become a better player? And is it a club that values everybody and it's not just a one and gun, one person show? Finding the balance to show everyone's highlights and not only focusing on one specific style. So like for our club, for instance, we have a lot of great attackers that know the two-man game, know how to play box lacrosse, know all that stuff. Then we have some great top dodgers. So just being able to have a club that can, see that and recognize that you need to show a little of both. And then playing in the right tournaments and having the right connections is huge for a club team. I mean, honestly, not many college coaches recruit from the high school teams. They might use them as a second reference, but you're not seeing college coaches lined up at high school games unless you make it to the state playoffs and you're in the East Coast, because I think we go a little bit farther than the West Coast teams or any like that. But so it's huge.
When you think about when the people are trying to choose a club team, how can they tell if you're going to the right tournaments? I mean, how does one know? Is there a small number that you can rattle off right now, or is there a better, easier, generic way to sort of think it through?
The top tournaments. So like, for instance, we were, this weekend at Mid-Atlantic, at Chesapeake, this next upcoming weekend, and President's Cup is huge. Those are the three main big fall tournaments. I would say rivalry and primetime as well are huge. You can also look at, it still is the same. You look at the M&Ds of the world, Skywalkers, Monsters, Top Guns, where they're at, coaches will follow. Mass Elite, you know what I mean? So, and I would love to put my Triple H up there as well as being a top program for coaches to come see. So even if you're not of that caliber yet, you need to be at those events where those teams are playing, because for sure college coaches are there.
Yeah. And that's how you built your club. And you've only been doing this for 3 years now?
Yeah, I think I'm on my fifth year. Yeah, fifth year.
Fifth year of doing it. And so you had to in a startup manner build a club, and right. You are starting to beat some of those top teams, and as you gain more notoriety, you'll be able to recruit a higher level. I would imagine every year's class is a little bit better, sure. As far as the quality. But what allowed you to kind of build your club the way you did? You referenced this before, but advocacy and connections. I'm sure that had a huge reason for you to be able to attract good players. And how important is that, and how do you do it?
I think a lot of times I value the development of the kid too. So I do a lot of lessons and a lot of practices. So I think, just focusing on development. And then, I mean, you could see it here at my high school team. We went from, not being that good of a high school team with all of my kids now playing club for me were considered one of the top in the league. And it took 4 years. So just focusing on the development and just buying into the process. It's okay to get crushed by all those top teams in the beginning. And then take my 2020 team, for example, I think they ended up like ranked 7th last year, beating Skywalkers, having great games with Top Guns, having, great games with all those top 10 club teams where we were losing to them 4 years ago. But just staying like on the course of development, and over time it'll even out.
Yeah, development is so key.
Yeah.
And then let's talk a little bit about advocacy. I mean, obviously the Northwestern coaching tree is insane.
Yeah.
And then you played in WPLL, so you played against all the women that are currently, pros that are coaching, and there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
And then being a college coach, obviously you just were on the sidelines doing this not very many years ago. So talk about how important it is and how advocacy really works.
It's huge. I mean, just being able to pick up the phone and reach out to get an answer, I think is first and foremost the most important thing. Like, is this person on your list or not? Yeah. If they're not, here's why I think they should be, or thank you for your honest feedback. I'm going to guide them in a different direction.
Yeah. That's huge.
And that leads me to what we touched upon a little bit ago, is the genuine advocacy. Like, I need to advocate the right people to the right places, because if I'm just throwing out all my kids to Kelly Amonte, she's going to be like, what the hell? Like, there's only few and far between that can go play at this type of a program. So just knowing like who fits there, who can thrive, who can put Triple H, and wear that across their chest and like wear it proudly that now they're representing us well at that program. I can't send someone that's not suited for that specific school unless they, have that type of skill set or that potential for the couple of years. So just figuring that out is huge, and having those conversations with each student athlete and then figuring it out, then I can start to advocate in the proper way. But you just don't go out advocating to all my best friends. Like, it's actually sometimes almost harder. Yeah. Like, all right, I really have to find the right kid because they're some of my closest friends. I need to find them the right fit. But just being able to get those clear answers, I think, is huge as well, which they're getting thousands of emails. So just, having them feel like they need to respond to me is nice.
Yeah. Getting a little intel. It's huge.
Yeah.
There's some people that run clubs. They're like, I will get you recruited, or they'll be like, if you don't play for me, you're blackballed. Can we just please debunk all these statements?
Yeah, I've heard that from a couple of clubs and across the country. And when I was both college recruiting and on the side I am now, I always tell my families, I'm going to put you in the best position to be exposed, and then it's up to you. So getting them, the looks, making sure the college coaches even just take a look, or, you have the opportunity for then you to make the best of it. I will never guarantee I'm going to get you recruited. I'm going to help put you in the best spot to, then you have to make it happen. It can't be only the club coach or, so you're just going to put them in a position to be seen, to get that exposure, to get the development that's necessary to play at that level. And then how bad do you want it is also huge. Like, you're either going to keep pushing and make it happen or fight to get that spot, or, it just didn't work out. But everyone's path is different, and there's no wrong or right path.
Right. Totally. Yeah. One of the things I would always think about is if I can advocate for an athlete by saying, hey, coach, I really think you should take a look at this player.
Yes.
If they trust me, they probably will.
Mm-hmm.
And then later on, when the player does their job and play really well, then you can dial up the advocacy when they come back to you and be like, I actually really like that player. And then you can dive right in. But right. I think a lot of people don't realize that, like, the only thing you can really do is probably get them a look.
Right.
And then it's up to them.
That's where sometimes it becomes a struggle with the parents. Like, why isn't this happening? What's going on? I'm like, hey, you have the opportunities. Now you need to, be assertive in these games, like we just talked about, to be like, all right, this kid has potential that they're going to come back and watch you. You didn't make a play, or you didn't do anything. So just making sure that, like, you take advantage of the chances you get when those coaches are lined up on the sideline. Like, I think last year at President's Cup, when that one night game we had, there was like 50 coaches there, which was awesome. So like
it pretty much got girls recruited on the spot.
Yeah, like, and it was a great game. Like I think we won, but it was a great game. You know what I mean? Like people always ask, like, did you win? That doesn't matter. You just want it to be a great game, equal looks, and all of them, you know, being assertive when they get the opportunity.
Let's talk about assertive for a second though, because like, and this is why it's so important to have good coaching in your club, because everybody kind of knows you need to be assertive. Some players are like so assertive, it's like painful.
Mm-hmm.
But that's where coaching comes in and says, hey, listen, you need to move the ball or I'm going to have to take you out.
Right.
Then there's other kids that are so unassertive, it's kind of painful. And that's where a good coach can be like, hey, you really need to make a play here. Like, we're going to get the ball to you. Go, you know, and to talk a little bit about how you try to manage that.
I'm honestly having a conversation today with a defender that I was like, hey, you had opportunities to come up with huge ground balls or make a great one-on-one play, and you just didn't capitalize on them. So you need to do that next tournament. If not, this is going to be a longer process for you. I think sometimes they think they have to score a goal or they have to do something. There's so many other little plays that, like, if you just change your direction, show a hustle play, show communication, those things you can control and you can do them constantly. And like I said before, like, you can assert yourself in so many other ways on the field that will at least get them thinking about you or stay on the list. So whatever you do, don't let them put you off the list.
Yeah, you don't want to get crossed off the list.
Yeah. So I think, like, don't think like, oh, my chances are over. No, it's just you need to focus on the little things that I think the bigger things unfold if you just have those small little things.
Yeah. And the other thing too is I think that there's a definite like element of important 2 words, right now.
Mm-hmm.
Because you might have kind of gotten crossed off a list a year ago, but right now you might actually be really good.
Yeah.
Right now, coaches might not be interested in you, but in 3 months from now, right now, they're going to be like, wow, this kid's actually like really growing on me. Can you speak to that?
And growing on me is huge. Like, they're growing teenage girls right now. So like, had a couple conversations yesterday. They're like, it's crazy to watch some of these girls that have just grown from July to now November 9th and 10th, first tournament weekend. They could be faster. They could be stronger. They could be slower. They could be worse. So you could go 2 different ways. So this depends on where you're at right now. And someone was saying, like, this first weekend is interesting because it's going to be like a whole new September 1st almost for a lot of the second wave of kids, because you kind of had your first wave go a little bit. Now they're figuring out their next 3 or 4 spots. And so you might have thought like, oh, I had no interest, but now all of a sudden you have all this interest because they figured they're moving on. People are making decisions.
For sure. Talk a little bit about old school versus new school as it relates to club lacrosse and coaching.
It's huge. So like, I would say, some of my girls on my team that have this, box lacrosse type of style of playing a different type of game, like we said, advocating to the right schools. Some colleges are going in that direction. Easy to advocate those players to those type of schools, where some people might still play a different style. It's just like all motion or top dodging or something like that, where this specific player might not mold into that offense as well. I think most schools are now just changing to it's faster, the shot clock, free movement. There's so many different things that are playing in. You got to start to picture these players playing at a different level and a different game. Unfortunately, lacrosse has different high school rules than they do college rules.
Right.
Why? I'm not sure, but you know what I mean? It becomes a different game when you can run through the crease on defense. There's more zones being played. Do you have the IQ? Which we can get into a whole another podcast on IQ. Do you know when a defense is in a zone and a man without right away, without your coach telling you right? Hopefully the coach tells you, but you also have to have that IQ to make a quick transition, or, do you know when you're in a fast break to a slow break? Just that style of IQ is huge as well. I kind of went off a tangent.
Yeah, no, it's good. I mean, because the point is that there's a difference in, lacrosse is very different right now, and men's and women's. This is not a women's lacrosse topic. This is men's and women's lacrosse. There are old school coaches that grew up and they do what they were taught. And there's cutting edge coaches that are constantly studying and learning, and on top of what the best players in the world are doing and figuring out how to teach it to their athletes. So whether it's not so much that 2-minute game's better than long dodges. It's about the fact that you got to be able to do all of this stuff. And with the onset of so much zone defense, you better be able to play some man up, because that's kind of how you play. It's a little different than, the coast to coast dodge from way outside the 12 and run through doubles, because that's why these zones are like shutting out teams sometimes.
Right. Yeah, for sure. I know it's huge. And it's interesting because for my club defensively, I would love to put in a zone, but I love to teach them. I went over this with you. Like, I think defenders get so few opportunities to show their athleticism that I just play a pressure man to man, just so they get that opportunity to showcase their one-on-one capability.
Yeah.
Where my high school team might have, a zone and a man-to-man and all different sets. So it's also huge just to, I just think like, all right, if you could, what type of defenders are college coaches taking? Are they taking the midi type athletic? Are they taking, that defender that's smarter in a zone that might be a little bit more IQ than they are faster and fitter? So just figuring out both balances as well. And like, do you play high pressure? Does someone might see one of my defenders that's fouling a lot that I know some of my, old teammates might love because she loves her, intensity or one-on-one defense, but some other coaches might be like, that girl's fouling way too much. That wouldn't fit for my style.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a really interesting point, that in trying to get your defenders looks, you feel that it helps to play high pressure, because now you can really isolate a defender out on the ball and see how they move. That makes a ton of sense. So if you're, everybody feels like, and I hear this all the time, and I've actually asked coaches, I'm sure you have too, do you recruit just middies or will you recruit defenders? Right. What's your answer to that?
Once again, I think it's a school, it's situational by school. So I know that like at Northwestern, we were like all middies. Now they're going to like middies and low attackers. But that's just how they evolved. I bet you, a lot of people are saying, I'm looking for 2 defenders, 5 middies, 2 attackers. So just figuring that out. But I think that defender, if they're taking those type of defenders, better be able to run with the ball and, have speed. So just, I always tell my defenders, like, break out that ball. Like, obviously make the open pass if it's wide open, but you got to show that you can handle the pressure and take that ball safely up the field.
Yeah.
If not, you're not really getting your hands on the ball. Like, I've had some defenders that just don't want the ball. They're very smart, very scrappy, very aggressive, but they need to want the ball. They need to assert themselves in transition to make a play. Doesn't need to be the best play in the world. You just need to put yourself in a position to cut back, get the ball, and transition it.
I think of the view of I'm just going to recruit middies is probably like a view that's evolving, I think, into I really want defensive players. They have to have the capabilities physically that the middies would have as far as speed. Maybe they don't have to be as skilled, but you know how it goes. You take a middy who's used to scoring goals and you tell her to play defense, and she doesn't have that mentality. Right. Half of being a great defender is having the mentality that you probably have.
Right, exactly. And I think it's also evolved because the game's evolved. I think when I was playing, like, there was like 3 or 4 good middies on every single team. So like they were just the best players because the sport was just so young, you know what I mean? But the game's, it's evolved where like now my high school team, like some of my best players are attackers and middies and defenders, where when I was playing high school, it was like 3 good middies on every high school team. And they just had to do everything because there wasn't that many great. Lacrosse was just not developed as it is now.
Yeah. It is pretty interesting, but it's kind of like if they're not recruiting defenders, and how do I like get to play midfield? And I think that the answer is
I have that a lot. I'm like,
it's really hard, and that's why you pressure.
Yeah,
and why there's no question. I mean, I was talking to Tim McCormick, head coach at ASU, about this. He is adamant about recruiting defenders. He wants middies, he wants attackers, but the thing is that everybody brings a different skill set. And if you get all the same players, then you're not going to be as good at attacking or defending as you would if you had some really smart players that can finish. You need some lefties, you need some, huge, speed, you need a draw girl, you need some defenders, you need some stay-at-home defenders that can talk.
Yeah, communication is huge. And I just think just being the defender that has confidence. So I think it's changed. Like I just like tell my defenders, go over and be a threat for a second. You know what I mean? That gets your opportunity, that you have confidence with the ball. You don't, and like I said, don't have to score. You just have to go over, maybe throw a pump fake, maybe do a give and go. Then you can get back over the line. But take that advantage to show that body language, confidence, all that stuff that you only get few opportunities to show when you're just playing in your 7v7 set.
The Phi-Lacrosse-ophy podcast is brought to you in part by the JM3 Lacrosse Academy. This 10-week online program is designed to teach cutting-edge lacrosse skills and IQ. Athletes will learn dozens of new techniques, creative drills, X's and O's, and most importantly, how to integrate it all into their game. To learn more or start getting better today, go to www.jm3sports.com/academy.
So let's talk about what coaches are actually looking for. I really feel like so many people in boys and girls lacrosse, they get so caught up in the recruiting, especially like ninth grade, that they start spending all of their time signing up for every possible showcase.
Yeah.
Every prospect day, everything they can do. And in the meantime, they're losing the opportunity to just get better. And at the end of the day, there's nothing more important than being good enough.
I agree. There was one of my players was in a rush to get back and like play in the next tournament. I'm like, hey, you've been injured for like 5 months. You can't just come back in the tournament. You need to get at least 3 weeks of practice before you showcase yourself. Like that will hurt you if you rush back and you've had no practice beforehand. The same thing with like going to a camp, and then what do you do? Just go from the next camp to the next camp? Like you need to assess. That's why film's great. Or like, what did I do bad at that past tournament or camp that I need to get better at before I go to the next one? If not, you're just going to make the same mistake. Like coaches would love to see an improvement. You know what I mean? So like, I saw that person once. Wow, that kid came back months later or a year later and they're so different. They've improved. Not they're the same player. So just making them notice something that's an improvement is, I think, more important than just continually being seen.
Totally. All right. So let's talk about what coaches want, and let's start with character. And how do they assess that?
Character is so hard. That's why I love to get my kid. I try and run like at least a fall camp or a summer camp just to get them. Obviously, I pick my Triple H teams based on character. Like this kid's a great kid, hardworking, tough, and I want the coaches to see those qualities in them, and they can only do them in a camp setting. So you just have to have the team first mentality, like cheering for other people. If you get focused in on yourself, you're going to make more mistakes. So if you're just like, I messed up, I'm only thinking about myself, I'm only doing this, a coach will notice that. And it's so easy just to like, just ruin your whole entire day. Yes, you need to have the intensity to like crush it, and you're going to dominate everybody while celebrating other people's successes, I think is huge.
So you can see the coaches will see the body language if you make a mistake and you're like, or you're going palms up. Everybody hates palms up.
Palms up, yeah. Or just like even an eye roll. I mean, like when I was recruiting, I would just try and really, really watch girls' body language or the way they like, oh, did they tell someone a genuine like great play, like, or was, you know what I mean? Just simple like that. Just really being that, team first mentality while no one ever is going to out hustle you or outwork you type of player. Like, did you crush the ground and then help them up? So just having that balance, I think is huge. And type of player, like, I think that goes into this whole recruiting frenzy is people start to get like, ooh, this person committed and that person committed and that, like, be happy for them. They are going to now push your level to help you get to the place that you're meant to be at too. And
open up doors.
Yeah.
So with early recruiting, there was probably no due diligence being done with anybody besides a youth coach. Now that, they can't actually start talking to athletes until 11th grade, at least now club coaches and high school coaches can be a part of the conversation. Like, hey, what's this kid like? Is she a good kid?
Yeah.
And how often are you hearing that back? And can the parents ever get you unrecruited because there's such they're so out of their minds that
Yeah.
nobody really wants to deal with you.
I'll answer the first one. Yeah, you get it all the time. They're going to be like, hey, I really liked this kid the past couple of weekends. What's she like? And I always tell my kids, make it easy for me to get you recruited. Make that an easy question for me to answer. Love them, hardworking, shows up to practice, ready to go, like wants to learn, pushing through every single drill, and, just make it easy for you to say those things. I mean, it sounds simple, but, a lot of times kids just don't do those little things that make it easy just to say that right off the bat. And then to the parents thing, I always just say, like, don't just yell for your kid to get the ball, or say go, 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 or say the opposite thing that the coach is saying. So just cheer for your kid, give them a hug, whether they play bad or good, just be there for them. And I mean, my dad was crazy intense, but he was always there for me. He was never going to tell me I played a bad game. He might tell me a few things I needed to work on, but like in a way that was great, that they were just there for me.
Yeah.
While he was so intense, screaming for everybody on the sideline. So I think it's just don't yell at the refs, be on your best behavior, just help be a great teammate. Yeah. As I tell the kids to be great teammates, like the parents need to be great teammates towards each other and to the kids.
Coaches are definitely watching and listening. And
yeah.
I mean,
and just the way they handle themselves on visits too. Like, is your questions all about money? Is it about playing time? Is it about, things that just are opposite of that culture, buying in, team mentality? You can get a vibe right away. Like, all right, this parent's going to be tough to deal with for 4 years, or wow, that family's awesome. Yeah.
That parent that answers every question for the kids.
Yeah, right.
But it's equally bad if the kids are rolling their eyes every time mom has a question, right?
That has happened. I've been on that side where I was like, oh, that kid was so rude to the parents. Like, I didn't like them, so you just get this, like, just, try and go in knowing that they're watching your every move, and it could affect, no matter how talented you are, it could affect what happens.
And if you throw a coach under the bus to another coach, that coach knows they're next.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about athleticism. Coaches love athletes. They feel like they can develop athletes. Obviously there's physical qualities, size and speed and quickness and stuff like that. But talk a little bit about how they're evaluating you as an athlete and the importance of sports, probably.
I mean, I just think you can't teach speed. So like, if you're fast, like, you're like, wow, that person has potential, something you can work with. Stick work can always get better with, what you're coaching them and what you're telling them to do and how much they want it to, get better at their own stick work. Their burst of speed, their change of direction, all that stuff. I mean, I think just seeing the athletes like on the field, you can tell. I mean, I'll use, one of the players we watched this summer, there was an amazing basketball player. You can just tell that her lacrosse is going to get better and better because of her basketball background.
Yep.
And athletes are sometimes what coaches need to take a risk on. Like, oh, I think that kid's a great athlete. Right now lacrosse is here, but she's going to be here once this becomes her main sport. And I think coaches love the fact of that, like, that project, like, oh, I'm going to make this athlete into a great lacrosse player one day. And she's so raw and like into learning the game where she hasn't been playing for 50 years. So it's just, I think coaches just get excited about that, but you also need to balance it with those amazingly skilled lacrosse players as well. You can't just have a bunch of athletes out there.
You'll never score, especially with all the zone defenses now.
Exactly. So it's just having that balance now with the way the game's going and how much more skilled it is. And you need those athletes, just to grit it out and tough it out with the balance of those finesse players.
Coaches love two-sport athletes, multi-sport athletes.
Yeah, I would say 100%. I mean, you just get a little bit of, also, I just think you don't want to get burnt out. I always say lacrosse becomes your job once you become into college, and it becomes the only thing that you're playing all the time. So just having that release a little bit in high school, so it's not all lacrosse, it just makes your 4 years in college a little bit easier. Not, easier in a sense that, like, it hasn't been your main focus for 8 years. Now it's your main focus for 4 years, where you had that outlet a little bit, in your high school career.
It's really hard, I think, for some athletes because they want to be a multi-sport athlete. But then all of a sudden September 1st hits and they're being invited on visits. And it's like, oh, we want to see you again. Come to our prospect day. And yet you're playing soccer or field hockey or cross country or whatever. And now you've got this conflict. And while the coaches are saying on the one hand, we want you to be multi-sport athletes, on the other hand, we need to see you. And they're not saying you can't play, but we also know that if you don't go to these events because you're playing another sport, it becomes harder to get recruited.
You need to find the balance. You also need to trust the process that, like, all right, that coach wants you and you have that open communication now. Like, hey, I am a serious field hockey player and I have playoffs up until now. Like, they should work with you there. And if it becomes a pressure situation where you need to get somewhere, hopefully they communicate that to you.
Yeah.
If they don't, that might mean that you weren't as high on their list as you thought you were.
Right.
So just having that open communication, I wouldn't be like, oh, I need to get there and skip all your fall sports. Just make sure communication is huge, whether with your club coach, with the actual college coach, just figuring it out. And that college coach might say, hey, no, tell, Emily that she should play soccer and we'll touch base. We have those spots. We're not in a rush. Or, you know what, Emily needs to get out here. If she can maybe miss one practice, it works out for me. I work in a high school that I can have those conversations with their in-season sports right now to tell them, hey, this is super important. What's the best time for her to leave?
Yeah. I think when you're actually in conversation with a coach, it's probably a lot easier to navigate that. It's more than when you need to get the look.
Yes. Yeah. And then you have this fear, like, if I don't do this, it's never going to happen, where you just need to be like, all right, just trust that your intensity, your assertiveness, your X, Y, and Z that is going to make you get looks at those tournaments is going to work. You know what I mean? So it's kind of just buying into your own process as well. Like, all right, playing a fall sport and being a multi-sport athlete is huge. And I'm going to go to that at least the Sunday of that one tournament. And that's going to be enough, where I, just figuring that out, where I'm going to play this out and I'm going to be a late recruit, which is fine.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times people think I need to get it done with, where most D1 schools right now have at least 1 or 2 spots in that 21 class. Like, it's not done. Like, I think we went over the numbers the other day, where, what is there, like 200 some committed and there's 800 plus spots or yeah. So I think people think, like, once one starts committed, it starts to create this little bit of paranoia, but it kind of starts to settle down. And, like, I think now most people are waiting till the end of their fall.
So we talked about character, we talked about athleticism. Let's talk about skill and how coaches are looking at skill. And this might be a little bit of the old school, new school kind of view.
Yeah.
But talk to us a little bit about, what it means to be skilled. Because I think some people think they're skilled, but maybe they aren't as skilled as they think.
Right. I mean, literally catching and throwing is huge. Like, I mean, that's what I was taught at Northwestern. We just did stick work all the time, on the move, under pressure. That's having skill. Like, that's like, you can't dribble the basketball, you can't play. So It's the same thing with lacrosse. Like, if you can't catch and throw when you're out there, you lost your opportunity to be assertive. So you have to have that stick work skill. I mean, and I think that's the main thing. Ground ball, like fundamental skill, which we harp on a lot in the fall at my practices, because you don't get everybody there all the time to do, like, an offensive set or go through plays. So I'm just going to harp on skills because we don't have everybody there. That's something that you can always improve. And it's something that you can control. Like, you need to constantly be working on your fundamentals. And like 9 times out of 10, the missed play is a dropped pass or a missed ground ball or an overthrow or an underthrow, which we're athletic enough to be in the spots, but we just didn't have the skill to complete the play. Right. So it's huge. I mean, you sometimes see coaches they might be like, oh, they were in the right place at the right time, they just didn't catch the ball. They need to work on skill. Or like, that person has awesome skill, it's going to get them, high on that list, or a lot of stars next to their name. Like, love their stick work, love their cradle. You can tell a lot by just the way someone has a smooth cradle.
Interesting. So obviously the fundamentals are so important.
Yeah.
But we also, when we look at where the game's going, we look at athletes like Kayla Trainer, right? You look at like these, and that's sort of like, that's taking fundamental skill and building on top of it with like the cutting edge, all of the fakes and the feeds and the angles,
Right.
shots. And
that's actually
all of
what
that
I
stuff.
mean by fundamental skill now, like is like the fakes, like shooting, like fake high, you know what I mean? All those different tricks. Like I think 4 of our goals yesterday were Twizzlers, or like, something that now I think are fundamental skills for
Got
our
it.
game, where that might be also be the old school and the new school. I'd
Mhm.
say like
Right.
Kelly and Acacia Walker and Lindsay Monday, who all coached me, they were the new school, and that's what I learned. So I have always been part of that new, fakes and all that stuff. And Hannah Nielsen, I obviously got to coach with for 3 years at Colorado, and, always up to date with the newest stick work and staying on top of that. That now becomes the basic skill in my club, not just regular catching and throwing.
So you're kind of redefining what fundamental is, because a lot of people would say that, you should only be overhand, right? And
Right.
in men's lacrosse, I say this all the time, and it's like, but that's just not true, because sometimes you have to throw it around the stick, sometimes around to the inside, sometimes behind the back, whatever it is, and you want to be deceptive.
I was going to say, talk about deception all the time. The amount of times, like, you just don't throw a tiny little fake like you're throwing away and make a pass over that way. It's huge. Like, you should never get your pass knocked down. Like, that's just being
so true.
Yeah.
And so when you think about skill, when I think about skill, I think about in 2 ways. One is how skilled are you at various techniques,
Mm-hmm.
but also how many skills are in your repertoire that you actually use. And the actually use part is kind of the key, because everybody can like do partner passing and do it around the world.
We make like behind the back, on the move partner passing a regular thing. So that shouldn't be like, oh, wow, this is crazy. It should be like, no, it's expected of you, and it's actually very effective pass. So use it now with like confidence, not like, I'm never going to do it, or I'm going to goof around and be silly. Like, so it's just an effective pass. So trying to make it more normalized that those are skills that need to be used in the game all the time, and not like ooh, wow, that was really tricky. You know what I mean?
I was talking to one athlete, and she got feedback from a coach that was like, really skilled, can play at a high level, absolutely no left hand. And the answer was from this athlete was, well, I just know how not to use my left hand. But talk about the importance of being two-handed, and also the same sort of style of play that's leaking into men's lacrosse, which is the box lacrosse. I mean, Selena Lasota developed a left, but she came in probably never having to put it in her left.
Right.
As do a lot of, same with probably Dana Dobie. I mean, she's a lefty, and she can probably do everything she wants to do without having to go right-handed all that much. And we know that works. And we know also probably that you'd rather have like world-class strong hand and a proficient weak hand than too good. But how do you, what's your belief on that as far as in the recruiting process? What do you need to have?
I think you need to have smooth, soft hands. So like, you could shoot every single shot with your right hand, but if you just display that like fluidness to go from right to left pretty quickly, and you're comfortable going, but if you know what I mean, you're setting up your dominant hand to get a shot off, that's actually equally as impressive. That you just set up your angle correctly to get your shot off the where you want it. You know what I mean? But being able to switch your hands effortlessly, you know what I mean? When you're pressured on that hand to go, and then you can come right back, I think is where they need to be able to use both hands.
Yeah.
And just cutting with the correct hand. Dodging, if you can set up your angle, that's awesome to get to your dominant hand and catch it offside dominantly, or whatever you want to do. You don't need to just because the stick needs to be in one way.
Right.
Doesn't matter what hand you are. Like, sometimes offside dominant hand is better than catching with your non-dominant anyways.
For sure.
But when they're cutting and feeding, just making sure they have it in the outside hand. I think that's where it becomes more apparent, like, oh, that person just fed where it's, shoulder, stick. They just passed into a stick rather than putting it in their left hand.
Right. I mean, the stupid turnover where you basically do high fives with somebody's stick.
Exactly. That drives me insane.
Might be the most insane thing.
Or you ask for the ball when the defender's right there. Just ask for it with your outside hand.
Right.
So I think having those little things where you can show that you have skill with both hands
Yeah.
seem simple, but like when you're getting it around, you ask for it with your outside hand simply or pass with the correct hand, kind of shows that like two-way skill where dodging, if you want to set up your dodge, your dominant hand, going to get off the best shot, go for it.
It's really interesting because, there's statistics and analytics out there that will say that you will score more goals every time your stick is to the middle.
Right.
Yet everybody grows up stick to the outside.
Yeah.
And those statements aren't opposite statements. They're both true. But the idea is that, if you split to your left and get back to your right, you can have more angle. That's great. If you
I talk more about angles. Like, all right, don't take that outside, stick to the outside shot. Like, get your body and your hips in a position that's more in front of the cage.
Right.
So that's where that Twizzler or whatever, you know what I mean? You need to get your stick and your shot off at a better angle. I think angles is huge. Not necessarily. Your stick could be to the outside, but if you're in the middle of the field, you know what I mean? If you dodge from the wing, like.
You're in the middle of the field and your stick's to the outside, it's good. But the reason why I'm bringing it up, though, is because there's a lot of traditionalists in men's and women's lacrosse that'll tell you stick to the outside everything you do. And what that ends up doing is creating worse angles for you as a habit.
Right.
And the player that is the box player is all about the angle because in a little net, you can't score if you don't get to the middle. That's why they never go to the other side of the field. They always stay on the righties on the left and the lefties on the right. But the reason why I'm bringing this up, though, is because you can be a player that, is trying to get to their strong hand, getting to the middle. But one time I heard you say that, and you just said a second ago, if you just show that you're two-handed as you're just passing the ball around, you can actually like check a box for a coach that knows you actually have.
So. Sometimes I would write down like, never ask for the ball with the correct hand. You know what I mean? Something simple as that. I also like little things when you're getting around. If someone just stands there, I'm like, just jab in and pop out, like create some space. Like that's the off ball movement that we're talking about. Like nothing bothers me more than someone that just stands there and doesn't take a step to the ball or like the little interception because you didn't move 4 feet. You know what I mean? With the correct hand.
Yeah. Okay. So we talked a lot about skill here. Let's talk about IQ. And, there's probably nothing more important than IQ, honestly, for winning games.
Yeah.
Very hard to recruit IQ.
Very.
So how do coaches do it? How did you do it?
I mean, I just try and constantly like instill in them the correct, like how to move the ball correctly. Like yesterday we had 3 fast break opportunities. Like 1 was really good, 2 were bad. Like one time, one girl she moved the ball to a girl that was covered when no one picked her up. I'm like, have the IQ that's your time to run down and shoot. You know what I mean? It's a 5v4 and they're still covered. No one slides to you. Just having the IQ that you don't need to move. Yes, everyone says move the ball in transition, but if no one's open, no one picked you up, you're the open person. Yeah. And then same next time down, someone moved the ball to the correct person, and then she forced it to the person that was covered. Like having the IQ to watch the defense, just to having the IQ to read the defense and not necessarily like get stuck in this, like, I must move the ball to these 3 spots. Like that's where the deception comes into, and just trying to get them to be better lacrosse players and read situations and not be like, I need to be drilled to do this every single time.
Right.
I think we played a club team once where they called the same play every single time, same girl scored from up top. Shame on us for not being able to figure that out and stop it. But I was also like, that's great, but they're not really like, you can't do that at a showcase. Like no one's going to do the exact same thing for you. Like, let's try and learn the game a little bit more to like read where the man up situation is. Read if you got doubled, you need to move it 2 times and find the open girl. Do you always just force it into the middle? I hate it when girls stand at the top of the 12 and then jam it in the middle. Like, you got to get it, the heads of the defense turned. You're making an easy interception play for them.
Perfect segue into deception, though, because I think deception is probably one of the ways that you can judge IQ. Maybe not always, but faking in general. If you can watch a player not only reading the defense, but manipulating it, then you know that there's a little bit of fluency there.
Yeah, I mean, because we just played yesterday, all these plays are coming back to me, but there was a wide open opportunity for your daughter. She was so open, but if our one attacker just moved that defender in the middle a little bit, like she's passing down low and then made the pass, instead she made the pass right away, intercepted. It could have been a beautiful play if she just threw one pump fake down to move that defense and then make that pass over there. So our thought process was right, but just tweaking that one extra, fake or move that defense that you need to start just instilling them, that needs to be second nature and not every other.
So many players are just focused on their own man.
Yeah.
And really, if you're fluent, you're not looking at your own man at all. You're looking through your own man. You've got control over her.
Yep.
Your ability to move and do all this, but at the same time, you need to be reading the defense, seeing where the space is, seeing where the defenders are, and figuring out how to manipulate them.
Right. I think celebrating those like almost beautiful plays where it was deceptive, it was great IQ is huge. Where like sometimes like I'm like, that was just a terrible goal. Do you know what I mean? Like trying not to celebrate the goals because it was a goal, but bad decision-making process.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like give them a round of applause. Like that was it. That was it. Like that was the opportunity. We just didn't finish. Right. Keep doing that. But maybe it might be different next time. So make sure they might now, bait to go that way and change it up. So just making sure that you give that feedback to these young high school girls always to keep building off their IQ and know that that was the right play, even though they didn't score, and correct someone that maybe scored the wrong way.
I think using skills, an array of skills is because skills are essentially solutions. And using different solutions in different scenarios can give you an idea. I want to talk about one specific scenario. We talked about behind the back feeding. I think behind the back feeding is awesome because it always buys time for the receiver generally. Yep. Like nobody sees it coming and it's in the back of the net before anybody does it. But then you see sometimes where people are using a behind the back pass just to transfer the ball. And the advantage isn't there anymore. And I kind of look at that as an IQ thing. Like that player doesn't really understand the value of this pass. Like just throwing it down to somebody for no other reason than I'm just going to throw it behind the back is probably not as warranted as when you're feeding a cutter or it's a one more where you're just like.
I think the one more BTB is so effective in a fast break where you get it, across. And like we just said, some less IQ lacrosse players make that pass with their right hand right to the stick. Where if they can just get in their right hand and get it down to that low person, it's so much faster than your hands are rolling to the outside. By the time they roll to the outside, they might be covered. Now you have to roll back, and now it's not a fast break.
The Kylie Ohlmiller behind the back feed too is one of my favorites, where she's a lefty and she just kind of runs up the arm towards the elbow and pops behind the back feeds to righty cutters.
Yes.
There's a lot of IQ that goes in that. There's a lot of deception. It doesn't look like she's feeding, and you can't really guard it.
No.
I kind of feel like certain plays like that will just get you circled and starred if you have that confidence. But it's really interesting because when you think about all these topics, and I'm really, as you know, I'm really into like this concept of free play and pickup games, and it's really what we spend a lot of time doing in the Monroe household. But that's because when you're out there playing, you have to process it. So many things like how am I being guarded? Where are my teammates? What's the score? Where's the space? Where are the other defenders? I got other teammates communicating with me. I got the coach yelling towards me. All of these things are happening, and then you got to make decisions.
Right.
And the decisions you're making there could be a bunch of them, like where to take the ball, where to pass it, and then what skill to use. And then you execute your decisions with your skills and techniques. When you spend all of your time kind of working on your skills and techniques, that's fine. You can master them, but that's not the hard part. The hard part is the processing and decision making.
Right. That's why I said, like, you need to put it into a game-like situation and just play, like multiple reps, not just for 5 minutes. Like sometimes I feel like we go to the next drill because we need to, but they need more time at it to be efficient to implement it. You just said, it needs to be a fast decision. You can't wait. It's too late.
And the decision to use a skill involves confidence sometimes.
Yeah, so much, especially with girls. I feel like I'm like, hey, I'd rather you make a behind the back pass bad with so much confidence than to like give up on yourself halfway through. Do you know what I mean? So I was like, it looked better, even though it wasn't executed correctly, if you just have the confidence and be like, and own it, rather than if they just go in at half-assed, then it's just like, it looks so much worse.
IQ can also be judged by your off the ball, right? So how you move without the ball, how you cut, how you pick, how you seal. Are you proficient in two-man games? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's huge. Even like little things with like rolling the correct way is huge. So like
Opening up, you mean?
yeah, like belly to the ball the whole entire time, or however you want to say that concept. Everyone has different little things. We used to say high five yourself open, or belly button has to follow the ball.
Yeah.
So many people slip the wrong way and then they're just not open. And then also realizing like don't make that pass if they did not roll the correct way and they're no longer open. Just me, and I think just having the IQ, like hitting the extra pass. A lot of times we don't say dodge pass, where girls see that open person and they force it in rather than hitting the next one. And then your angle is so much better to curl cut back to the ball. Curl cutting is huge. Like just being able to like curl onto it, square up your hips, where so many times people will just like flat cut and then they're making a shot, like running away from the goal, So why not get your body in position to make the most effective shot? And these are little things that, we try and harp on at my club team all the time, that it just takes time and they need to keep getting it. Fading. I love that drill that Hannah Nielsen did last year on the podcast. I think it was that 3v3 drill, where my top girl, I notice it all the time now, just stands, or she'll cut through. I'm like, you can fade because you can see your girl that will inch over and then you're wide open. Just, being aware of where your hip is, what you're doing off ball. Simple exchange with your head on a swivel. Head on a swivel is huge. A lot of times people just turn away and they have no idea that their girl went to go double.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, following the slide, right? So if you're going to slides, you got to follow her. Recuts and, how about give and goes? I mean, it's like, if you were a coach, would you not be like give and go and just like make a little check there?
Exactly. That happened even defending a give and go. I'm like, oh my gosh, how'd you not know that your girl's going to get the ball back? Like, I was like, talk to your defense and have her, slide and cover your girl. But I think people need to look for that so much more. It's so open, especially with free movement now too. So
I do a lot of video assessments, and we actually look at every single off-ball movement a player does. You've seen those. I did them for a couple of your players.
Yeah.
It's very interesting to sort of look at, like, we chart every movement you did and categorize them. And then every movement that you could have done, should have done, would have done. Which you take it with a grain of salt, because if you're being told to do one thing, then you got to do what your coach says. But there are certain basic generic movements, like clearing through.
Some people like or like work in the wrong ways. You know what I mean? They might be working so hard, the effort's there, but just work a little bit smarter. Yeah. Like angle your cut differently. Like, it's crazy, just the positioning, and like we said, be in the right place to assert yourself. Like a lot of times girls transition in a flat line. I'm like, you need to get ahead. Like they need to get ahead to cut back in layers. But sometimes I'm like, I don't know if they quite understand when I'm saying that. You need more practice. Yeah, but, or they'll pass to someone that's in the same, like, let's transition the ball up the field, not, east and west. Let's get it upfield.
How about defensive IQ? How are you figuring that out?
It's pretty, like I said, I try and make it pretty straightforward for my club girls, but just knowing the time and place when to jump and double team and stay on the double is huge. Yeah. Sometimes they'll just like stay with their defender and that person just goes right to goal. I'm like, go make that double team. And also knowing when to force outside and when to force back to help is a huge IQ part on the one-on-one defender. Like, all right, you need to be aware. I have no help on my left-hand side at all. So I should probably try to get her back to my defense. And I just think trusting those instincts, especially with playing behind the net, like go out and make a play together. Be there to not let them just catch the ball, without any pressure on them behind the net. But you need to do that with your other defender having your back. Don't go just be this sole person that's going all out without your help. So having the IQ to make a play while communicating, like we just said, to your teammates, because defense is huge on communication. If you're just one person doing something and the other person's not there, you look bad.
What kind of, are there some specifics on communication that you would actually like listen for?
I'm just so used to saying like hot, like we say hot is like your first and second slide, like right there, like the adjacents next to ball. I would be impressed by someone going out behind the net and telling that other person to come with them. Telling them exactly where to force them back. saying jump, like you're going to jump the double. There's a couple of things right there. And especially when you are transitioning the ball to your attack, if I hear those defenders telling people where to go, like so many times defenders just stay in the middle of the field. If they don't break wide, like listening to those defenders, like you get low right, I'll get low left, you go high, and like just to spread that field out. It's already pretty narrow. Like we make it more narrow on ourselves. Why not use the sideline? So a lot of times seeing those defenders to communicate where they're going is huge too.
There's no doubt that college coaches are going to notice your communication like that.
Everyone's specific. So like you can have a head coach as a defender that's going to see that a lot. You can have a head coach as an attacker that's not listening for that as much. And it's situational as well. Like I'll talk to Aunt Ellie about defense all day, but
yeah,
I'll talk to Hannah about attackers and, more.
In men's lacrosse, they always talk about using first names too. And I'm this is totally applicable to women's lacrosse. I just don't know if it's as much of a topic, but Colleen, force her right. Colleen, force right.
I say
it's a lot better than
as possible. I'm like, you can literally say the exact thing you're doing. They're not paying attention to you. You know what I mean? Like same thing with attack. You could say you're rolling a pick and roll. If you do it effectively, it's still hard to stop because you might repick, you might slip, you could change, you know what I mean? So you don't have to like make up some code language. Just communicate and be directive and be decisive. And I was like, you could make the wrong decision, but if you communicate and do it 100%, I'm fine with that. But if you are in between two decisions, not fine with that.
A couple of the girls I coach on our high school team, they lip it. They're like, they say slip and as if they're whispering it and then they know. It's kind of funny. Like, but the point is that there's all different ways to communicate.
Right. Yeah.
You're actually communicating is important. Or they'll be like, hey, let's do that thing.
You know what you're doing. Like you might know each other so well, you know exactly how to play off each other with no communication. But defense, you never need to change that. You could be as clear as day and doesn't matter.
So the last thing the coaches are looking for, and the reason why I went last with this topic is not because it's the least important. It might be the most important, but that's your academics. It's just that they're going to look at you on the field first. Mm-hmm. Then they're going to find out what kind of a kid you are and if you're in the ballpark academically.
Yeah.
And so from an academics perspective, any thoughts and advice on this?
I mean, it just gives you more opportunities. So it allows you for way more opportunities to fill that last spot. If you have looking at a high academic school, you're putting yourself in a better position where if you don't have the grades, it's going to be a tougher road if you're not like the top 10 person in the country. So I just think it just and a lot goes into your work ethic. So like if you have great grades, I remember, at Colorado used to say like you have to work equally as hard on the field as off the field. So like just showing that you are working your butt off in the classroom, it just validates those hardworking attributes we're looking for. Yeah. But I would just say just making sure it just allows for more opportunities. It helps a bunch.
Huge. Okay, turning to a new topic, which is let's talk about summer recruiting a little bit. Mm-hmm. How many things should you be doing in the summer? And I think that I feel like some people are just doing so much that we talked about this a little bit in our conversation before we got started here, but they're doing so many things. They're going from one camp to another camp to a tournament to camp to camp to tournament. And they do 8 weeks of it. They're doing 15 things. I mean, where do you draw the line,
I know. I always say you need to map out your summer with your parents and have a balance. And I always tell them take off in August. Don't you need your downtime, and at least I give my club off around 4th of July too. I hope they take that week to maybe relax and regroup because it's a tough 3 weeks in June and 3 weeks in July. If you end up making those all-star teams, if you make Under Armour, if you make your team one of the national schoolgirls, you might not only need one more camp, you know what I mean? Because you're getting those 2 extra showcases where if you're not on those teams, you might need 2 or 3 camps. I try and say to pick a camp that has multiple coaches there so that you're not just, narrowing it down I'm only going to get seen by this school. Mm-hmm. So that you can kind of, see a bunch of different schools, especially if you're 2022. If you're a 21 this coming summer, you should know you're not going to be running around. You might have one camp that you need to go to that they're still watching you. or like a D3 showcase of some sort type of camp. But yeah, you don't need to go crazy. I think if you love a school, like I always say, like if you're like, my heart's set on Notre Dame, it's always where I want to go, then go to that camp. Like, let's get in front of them. That's your dream school. Let's make it happen. Follow your dreams. Like, I'm going to help you in any way. And then if that doesn't work out from there, then we might need to open it up more.
It does seem like the relationships that you can build with coaches while you're at their camps make a huge difference in your ability to end up there. I mean, it doesn't mean that they wouldn't recruit you, but if they really like you, it makes them want to recruit you more. You think that's true?
I agree. I mean, I think there's something to be said with like, wow, this kid really, really likes us. Like, she's, this is where she wants to be. And you're going to take that kid that really wants you over the kid that you're trying to convince, if they're equal talent.
Yes.
So a lot plays into that, but it will help you maybe get a leg up when you're same playing field. All right, I'm going to go with this kid that loves us and has been, committed to us since day one, rather than continuing to chase this other kid around. And also, you might be that blue collar, hardworking kid that coach. It's like, wow, I love working with this kid every time she's here. You always use one or two kids that you get in a class that they're just like, I want this kid here. She's a culture changer, or she might not be the most talented on the lacrosse field, but she's something we want, a part of our program. So you have the ability to do that at a camp and really like get to work, with all those coaches and the players. The players are big advocates for a lot of the coaches too. Those players, if they love you, they come back like, we want this kid. Yeah. Coaches will listen.
Well, and also they can really identify your IQ and a little more depth of your skill, because they can see you adapting in the drills with the things
for 3 days, not what we just said. What do we say? It comes down to 9 minutes a half.
Yeah.
You get more in 1 hour drill, there than you do at a fall tournament.
Right. I think it's interesting, the concept. I mean, I agree. You can't argue with like going to a prospect day that has more coaches. Because you are going to get more bang for your buck. But I think there's an argument for, if you go to the individual camp and it's a little smaller, they can actually get to know you better.
I really don't have the right answer, because I know those lacrosse master camps, like a lot of my 2020s love them, and they ended up getting committed because of those small. I don't know how much they capped it off at, but it was perfect. And that's why I try and run that one fall elite event here at for Triple H, where there's only 70 to 80 kids and 10 college coaches. I mean, that's awesome. Like, you're not going to get that really another place where you get, I think they each got to be with, at one of the head coaches for 3 full 20-minute sessions, and got coached by them in a 7v7 and a full field game. So you're getting to work with each of them in a different setting for 1 full day, where the one drawback at some of the camps is you might get positioned in a group and then with one specific college coach that whole time. Might be your dream school, might be a school you're not interested in at all.
Right.
You kind of, that's a toss up you get sometimes when you go to the, a bigger school camp with 15 college coaches there. You might like the 5 schools, but you might not like the other 6 schools, and you might only see the main 6 schools you don't like.
Well, and interestingly, a lot of times, not all coaches are created equal in terms of how thoughtful they are about putting you in a position. So like, sometimes they might be like, let's do one-on-ones. Okay, I'll stand here at the elbow and you can dodge me.
Right.
Which is not going to show you anything, right? Because it's just like, it's like dodging a cone. Or you could be like doing one-on-ones, where it's like, wow, that kid actually like knows how to beat people. And
I know.
You would think that would be a like standard operating procedure, but it's not.
The one thing I would say though is, when you go to those camps, like, even if you didn't like that, you're not interested in that specific college coaches change so much that still bust your butt, don't get down, because that coach in 3 weeks might be the head coach at a school that you're in love with, and they'll remember you. So just making sure that you still try and learn, try and get better, like all those things that we just said, even if it's not like recruiting purposes wise going in your favor.
Yeah. I'll tell you, it's a huge advantage if you live on the East Coast too, because us that live out in the West, it's like, you're going to fly to go to a 4-hour prospect day. And it's like, as opposed to driving a few hours to get to the prospect day, it's really hard. You just can't do as much when you live farther away. Definitely. Which is why the more bang for your buck sometimes works. But I also think it kind of like you should look at the kind of player you are. There are certain players that are just so, athletic and tall and fast that they're going to stand out no matter what they do.
Right.
There are other players that really are going to shine a lot better on a club team because of their IQ and the way their team plays. And you got to kind of find that balance too, I think.
Definitely. I mean, yeah, I've heard like it's crazy how unhappy some kids are on some club teams or not, you know what I mean? And that's a lot of your future riding in that. So you better find a place that you're happy at where you can thrive and get better. That club coach or specific coach can help you in any way they can.
A lot of people I've heard say like, well, we don't want to leave our club because then we're going to be we're like club hopping.
Yeah.
Like college coaches are going to care at all. They don't care. All they care about is, are you good enough?
Right.
And they care if your parents are a nightmare, but leaving a club doesn't.
I feel like they might ask, was there something bad that happened? And if it's just, coaching or you want a different change, they don't care. If there was a serious issue, you might.
For sure. But that's a separate topic. But I just sort of say that because I just know that I've heard people say they're afraid. And that just goes back to the whole thing where you could get blackballed or you could get banned or somebody. And you can't. If you're good enough, you're good enough. If you're not, by the way, the better you are, the more leeway you get. As hypocritical as that statement is, it's pretty much true. I mean, generally speaking.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I would help out as many people as I possibly can, but I just said you also have to have the talent. It's easier to help out talented kids and get them in the spot than it is to help projects or someone that might take time. But you need to check the characteristic box for me in order to help you. Need to be a good teammate. You need to be hardworking, and I need to trust those qualities before I take on someone that I'm going to put my name associated with.
Last topic, let's talk about development and, what you believe are the best ways, back to the topic of, are you good enough?
Right.
What are the best ways for you to do that? If you're a parent and you want to help your kid or you're a kid listening to this.
I think having a clear conversation with them. Do you want to play Division I lacrosse is like kind of an important conversation to have, which sounds silly, but I think a lot of times when like people just want to say they're going to play Division I lacrosse, but they actually don't want to do the hard work. Like it's hard work. And do you want to, is a D3 a better option for you because you don't want to, this to be your job when you go to college. So just figuring out what you want first is huge. And then putting it on priorities too. Like is academic your main priority? Like, because I've had a lot of kids where I said they're very, very, very good students that academically can get into a Notre Dame or something like that, but they talent-wise can't play there.
Yeah.
So figuring out that balance of where it fits for them. And do they want to go to a lower academic institution and jeopardize missing out on their academic talents, if that makes sense.
Right.
So just having those conversations with what they want really helps it, rather than you could be wasting time trying to get them to somewhere when they don't even want it.
Right. Be careful what you wish for, right? I mean, like it's a lot of work to play Division.
A lot of work. I mean, it's not, it's awesome, like looking back on it now, but those are hard days and long, cold practices and
early mornings.
Yeah. And so just figuring out if that's what you want. And then you kind of put it to them, like some of them, I'm like, all right, now it's up to you. You either you gotta get faster and fitter and stronger. Like, you know what I mean? That's what they need from you. That's what they want to see. And then do they do that or do they not? If you can't do that now, you're definitely not going to do it when you're at college. Or your stick work needs to get better. I need you on the wall every single day. Then that's up to them. You know what I mean? You can only give them so much to do, or how you need them to get better to get the looks. Like, I think that's what's nice, is trying to get that clear feedback from some coaches. Hey, I really liked this kid, but her skill set's not that good yet. Can you work on that? I remember I talked to one coach for one of my 2019s. They were like, really like her size, really like her potential. I just need her to get, I think he said softer hands, like being able to move her stick around a little bit more fluidly. And that was her main focus to do that fall. She ended up committing after the fall because he saw an improvement. So just trying to get those, clear feedback areas to work on and then figuring out if they're willing to put in the time to make those changes. And if they're not, then it's probably wasn't going to be a good fit for you if you can't make those changes now.
Yeah, no doubt. And it really helps to have good coaching along the way too, because
Yeah.
whether it's, your high school coach, by the way, there is, and I failed to mention this at the beginning, but you're the head coach at Penn Charter, where you're also the AD.
Yeah.
And those girls are so lucky to have you, because there is no bigger opportunity or opportunity cost than a spring of great coaching playing.
But yeah, I mean, I just love trying to give them all the stuff that we were just saying earlier. And I think if they buy into what I'm saying, they're starting to see the success. So like just buying into the small things where, they've had coaches before that just never taught them IQ or set up a play. Like they were like, what? We have plays? I'm like, yeah, you have plays. So it's just like trying to get them, to be smarter lacrosse players. And a lot of those girls now are finding themselves with great opportunities at them that they have in front of them. Like tomorrow, Wednesday, signing day for my seniors here. And I'm fortunate that I have a girl going to Ohio State, Stony Brook, North Carolina, Penn, and St. Joe's. And those are my 5 seniors. So, and they've come a long way, where I don't think they would have thought they were going to those places if 4 years ago.
But they've worked hard at it. You got to work hard at it. You got to love it. It really helps to have good coaching. I am a huge believer in playing these small 3-on-3 and 4-on-4 pickup games. That's pretty much what we do, because we play for Triple H and we live in Denver, and you're in Philly. So the way we practice lacrosse,
my girls love it when they get to come play with you and learn from you, whether we're just chatting at practice or something like that. Just to learn from your IQ is huge, and I think they see that I'm learning, so they too want to learn.
Yeah. And they love playing in the pickup games, and it's so much fun. I love playing in the pickup games.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's fun. I'm a visual learner, so I have to, we talk a lot on the phone and I'm trying to draw it up, but I need to see it in front of me in order to like really comprehend it, and then continue your wealth of knowledge to my girls as well, so they get it not just once a month. They try and get it every day. As we talked about, repetition and playing in a game setting is the only way they're going to continue to learn.
Awesome. Well, there's a lot more topics, and we're going to have to do this again sometime. But in the meantime, if people have questions about recruiting, can they reach out to you, or do you have events and things that they can? How do they get in touch with you?
My email is best. It's just COLLEEN at big4 BIG4LAX.com.
Colleen, Triple H. Colleen at Big 4 Lax. And for those of you that have questions on my end, you can always email me at jmonroe@jm3sports.com. Colleen, always a pleasure talking to you about lacrosse. And I know there's so many more topics that we're going to have to come back and revisit, but we'll do it next time.
Yes.
So, thank you so much.
To it. No problem.
See ya.
Yeah.
The Phi-Lacrosse-ophy podcast is made possible in part by the JM3 video assessment tool. There is no question that video is critical to player development. One way or another, your son or daughter must utilize video to learn their game and the game. To learn more, see video testimonials, or register, go to www.jm3sports.com/video right now.